Fatal Secrets, The Billionaire, The Yacht, and A Deadly Truth. On the evening of November 23, 2013, the Santa Cruz harbor in California lay still under the soft glow of the setting sun, unaware of the dark secret it would soon reveal. Among the sleek yachts lining the docks, one stood out: the Escape, a gleaming 50-foot vessel owned by Forrest Hayes, a titan of the tech world. For Forrest, the Escape was more than a yacht. It was a sanctuary, a place where he could leave behind the pressures of his public life. But that night, the Escape would become a crime scene. Inside the yacht's main cabin, Forrest Hayes lay motionless on a leather sofa, his stillness breaking the eerie calm of the room. The room was dimly lit, with the curtains drawn tight, casting an air of eerie intimacy. On the table in front of him sat two wine glasses, one untouched, the other with a faint lipstick stain. Nearby, a bottle of red wine stood half empty, its cork discarded. The setting was pristine, almost staged, a picture of calm that hid an unmistakable wrongness, as if the scene itself whispered of secrets untold. A small injection mark on Forrest's left arm told a silent, troubling story. Yet, no syringe or medical equipment was found nearby, leaving first responders and investigators with more questions than answers. The yacht's captain, summoned by a call from Forrest's worried wife, described him as a man who fiercely guarded his privacy. Forrest often retreated to the Escape for solitude or intimate gatherings. On this occasion, however, no one had seen anyone board or leave the yacht after Forrest embarked earlier that day. The absence of witnesses posed an unsettling question: how could someone enter and leave undetected, leaving behind only silence and suspicion? Forrest Hayes was no ordinary man. At 51, he had reached the pinnacle of success, working for industry giants like Apple and Google. Known for his innovation and relentless drive, Forrest had earned respect and admiration in the tech world. He was a devoted family man, living in an affluent neighborhood with his wife, Denise, and their 5 children. To the outside world, he was the epitome of success, a man who had it all. Yet, as investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a vastly different narrative. Behind the polished exterior lay a man with secrets. The Escape, once a symbol of family unity, had become a refuge for Forrest's private indulgences. Through the platform-seeking arrangement, he had begun discreetly meeting younger women. Among them was Alexandra Tilman. Alex, a 26-year-old Canadian, had a troubled past that stood in stark contrast to Forrest's seemingly perfect life. Adopted into a stable middle-class family, she had once been a promising student with dreams of becoming a writer. But her teenage years were marked by rebellion, addiction, and a descent into a chaotic lifestyle. By the time she crossed paths with Forrest, Alex had turned to seeking arrangement as a way to support herself, offering companionship to affluent men in exchange for financial stability. The discovery of Forrest's body and the lipstick-stained wine glass quickly led investigators to Alex. Surveillance footage confirmed she had boarded the Escape earlier that evening, but what unfolded during their time together remained a mystery. The same cameras captured her leaving the yacht alone hours later, carrying a small bag and moving quickly as if she were trying to disappear. That fateful night unraveled a web of secrets that Forrest had meticulously hidden, exposing the duality of his life. The tragedy aboard the Escape was not just the story of one man's untimely death. It was a collision of 2 lives, both shrouded in shadows and secrets waiting to be unearthed. As the investigation deepened, it became clear that the truth would expose more than anyone could have anticipated. Forrest Hayes was a man of contrasts, brilliant and accomplished, yet enigmatic and deeply human. Born on May 10, 1962, in Dearborn, Michigan, Forrest displayed extraordinary potential from a young age. Known for his curiosity, exceptional intellect, and natural charisma, he excelled in academics and quickly became a standout figure among his peers. Teachers often marveled at his ability to solve the most intricate problems effortlessly, a skill that would later drive his groundbreaking achievements in the tech world. After graduating high school, Forrest attended a prestigious university where he majored in engineering and computer science. It was during this time that he began exploring cutting-edge technologies, a passion that eventually captured the attention of industry leaders. By the early 1980s, Forrest had established himself as a rising star in the burgeoning tech industry. His career trajectory took him to some of the most prominent companies of the era, where he contributed to groundbreaking projects that would shape the future of technology. A pivotal moment in Forrest's career came in 2005 when he joined Apple. At the time, the company was on the brink of revolutionizing the world with its innovative products. Forrest became an integral part of the team behind the development of the iPhone and iPad, earning accolades for his visionary contributions. His ability to think outside the box and approach challenges with creativity made him an invaluable asset to Apple's leadership. Not one to rest on his laurels, Forrest sought new opportunities to push the boundaries of innovation. In 2007, he joined Google and became part of the esteemed Google X division, a team dedicated to developing futuristic technologies. Forrest played a key role in projects ranging from autonomous vehicles to smart devices, cementing his legacy as one of the industry's most influential figures. Colleagues described him as a relentless innovator, someone who inspired his teams to achieve what seemed impossible. While Forrest's personal life seemed to mirror the perfection of his career, subtle cracks in the facade hinted at a deeper discontent. In 1996, he married Denise Hayes, and together they built a family that seemed picture-perfect. With 5 children and a sprawling $3 million home in one of California's most exclusive neighborhoods, Forrest embodied the ideal of a man who had it all. He cherished family outings on his yacht, the Escape, a vessel he often described as his second home and a place where he could connect with his loved ones away from the demands of his high-pressure career. Beneath the polished veneer of success, a deep restlessness lingered, quietly steering Forrest toward hidden corners where his vulnerabilities lay exposed. Friends noted that Forrest often expressed a sense of emptiness, as though his extraordinary accomplishments had failed to bring him true fulfillment. This longing for something more led him to seek solace outside his family, an aspect of his life that remained hidden from most who knew him. Through the platform's seeking arrangement, Forrest began discreetly meeting younger women, transforming the yacht Escape from a family haven into a stage for his double life. These secret encounters, symbolized by details like the lipstick-stained wine glass found in the cabin, underscored the stark contrast between his public persona and private desires. For Forrest, these meetings offered an escape from the weight of his responsibilities, but they also marked the beginning of a dangerous path that would ultimately lead to tragedy. As investigators pieced together the chilling details of his death, the lipstick-stained wine glass, the faint injection mark, they uncovered a life far more intricate and fractured than anyone had imagined. The celebrated tech luminary was also a man with profound vulnerabilities, wrestling with desires and emptiness that made his life as fragile as it was extraordinary. Forrest Hayes was not just a tech visionary or a family man, he was a figure of contrasts, whose private struggles and public triumphs painted a portrait of a life as intricate as the technologies he helped create. Alexandra Tilman, the woman whose life would one day intertwine tragically with Forrest Hayes's, embodied both allure and contradiction. Born on April 8, 1987, in Ontario, Canada, Alex's early years seemed unremarkable, marked by a stable upbringing in a middle-class household. Adopted as a baby by Leslie and Bart Tilman, Alex was raised in a supportive and nurturing environment. Leslie worked in retail, while Bart held an executive position at a local company, providing the family with financial security and social stability. As a child, Alex was bright and creative. Teachers often praised her vivid imagination and ability to think outside the box, particularly in subjects like literature and art. She dreamed of becoming a writer and found joy in crafting short stories that showcased her unique perspective on the world. Alex also excelled in athletics, participating in school sports and competitions. Her parents, proud of her achievements, invested in her education and supported her ambitions. However, as Alex entered her teenage years, her life took a sharp and unexpected turn. At the age of 14, she began experimenting with substances, a decision that would set her on a path of gradual self-destruction. What started as casual experimentation quickly escalated, and by the age of 16, Alex had become heavily involved in the world of drugs and partying. Her once bright future unraveled as she skipped classes, abandoned athletics, and distanced herself from the family that had always been her foundation. Leslie and Bart tried desperately to intervene. They sought help from counselors, enrolled Alex in therapy sessions, and eventually sent her to a rehabilitation school in Maine known for its strict disciplinary approach. Despite their efforts, Alex struggled to adapt to the structured environment and eventually returned home, slipping back into her old habits. By the time she was 18, she had dropped out of school entirely and found herself at a crossroads. Alex's 20s were marked by a series of attempts to find stability, but she was repeatedly thwarted by her ongoing struggles with addiction. She dabbled in various career paths, including journalism and modeling, but her inability to commit to any one direction left her floundering. In 2010, she relocated to San Francisco, hoping to start fresh. It was during this period that Alex began exploring unconventional avenues for income. She initially created a YouTube channel, sharing makeup tutorials and personal vlogs, but the project failed to gain traction. Desperate for financial stability, Alex ventured into modeling, finding a niche in fetish photography, a provocative field that offered fleeting relief but further isolated her from conventional paths. Her struggles with addiction persisted, and she continued to live a life of uncertainty and instability. In 2011, Alex joined the platform Seeking Arrangement, a decision that would irrevocably alter the course of her life. Through the platform, she connected with wealthy individuals who offered financial support in exchange for companionship. Alex viewed this arrangement as a means to escape her mounting financial pressures and gain access to a lifestyle she had long desired but could never afford. It was on this platform that she met Forrest Hayes. At first, her interactions with Forrest were transactional and professional. He offered her generous compensation and gifts, and in return, she provided him with the companionship he sought. Their meetings often took place aboard his yacht, Escape, a setting that offered privacy and exclusivity. Over time, however, their dynamic grew more complex. Forrest began to trust Alex, and she, in turn, saw an opportunity to secure greater financial stability. Alex's presence in Forrest's life introduced an element of unpredictability. Her troubled past and volatile personality contrasted sharply with Forrest's meticulous and orderly existence. Friends and colleagues of Forrest were unaware of her presence, and to the outside world, she was invisible. But within the confines of the Escape, she became a significant part of his hidden life. The events leading up to Forrest's death remained shrouded in ambiguity, but one thing was clear. Alex's role in his final hours would become the focus of intense scrutiny. Her decision to leave the yacht that night without seeking help for Forrest cloaked the incident in chilling ambiguity. Was it a moment of panic, cold indifference, or something more deliberate and calculating? The unanswered questions about her actions left investigators and the public alike questioning her true motives. Investigators would later uncover a trail of evidence that linked her directly to the tragedy. But her motivations and the true nature of her relationship with Forrest would remain points of contention. Alexandra Tilman embodied contradictions, a woman both brilliant and self-destructive, whose allure masked a dangerous unpredictability. Her path to Forrest Hayes was paved with missteps and missed opportunities, culminating in a moment that would forever alter both their lives. As her story unfolded, it became clear that she was not merely a bystander in the tragedy aboard the Escape. She was a central figure whose actions, whether born of recklessness or intent, would leave an indelible mark on a fragile life that was already teetering dangerously close to the edge. As the news of Forrest Hayes' death broke, it sent shockwaves through both the tech community and the media. A man who appeared to have it all was now the subject of a dark and perplexing mystery, shattering the illusion of his perfect life. Law enforcement quickly launched an investigation, eager to untangle the mysteries aboard the yacht escape on that fateful night. Investigators began by meticulously examining the crime scene, with forensic experts combing through the cabin for clues that could explain the events leading to Forrest's death. The scene's meticulous arrangement immediately struck investigators as peculiar, almost as if it had been carefully staged. There were no signs of a struggle, yet the room felt deliberately arranged. The curtains were drawn tightly, and the dim lighting created an atmosphere of calculated privacy. On the table near Forrest's body were two wine glasses, one of which bore a faint lipstick stain. The placement of the glasses and the bottle of wine hinted at the presence of another person, but there was no immediate evidence to identify them. One detail stood out: the injection mark on Forrest's left arm. The absence of a syringe or any drug paraphernalia nearby heightened suspicions of foul play, especially given the unusual presence of an injection mark. Toxicology reports would later confirm that Forrest had died from a lethal dose of heroin, a discovery that only deepened the mystery. Forrest had no known history of drug use, making the circumstances of his overdose highly suspicious. Investigators turned their attention to the yacht's security system. Although some cameras on the escape were non-functional, they recovered partial footage from the marina's surveillance system. The recordings revealed Forrest boarding the yacht alone that afternoon, followed shortly by a woman who matched the description of Alexandra Tilman. Hours later, the footage showed Alex leaving the yacht alone, carrying a small bag. Her hurried movements and furtive behavior pointed to a deliberate attempt to evade detection, deepening the intrigue surrounding her role in the tragedy. With Alex identified as a key figure, detectives began piecing together her connection to Forrest. They obtained his phone, which contained a series of messages exchanged between the two. The texts painted a picture of a relationship that was both transactional and personal. Forrest often reached out to Alex to arrange meetings, offering her expensive gifts and financial assistance in return for her companionship. Further investigation into Alex's background revealed a pattern of instability and questionable behavior. Her history of substance abuse, tumultuous relationships, and involvement in unconventional work raised red flags for detectives. These details, coupled with her presence on the yacht that night, made her the prime suspect in Forrest's death. Detectives tracked Alex down using her activity on the platform's seeking arrangement. Posing as a potential benefactor, they arranged a meeting with her at a secluded location. When Alex arrived, she was taken into custody without incident. During questioning, her demeanor was described as calm but evasive. She admitted to being on the yacht with Forrest that evening, but denied administering the fatal dose of heroin. According to Alex, Forrest had requested the substance and injected himself. She claimed her decision to leave the scene was driven by sheer panic upon realizing Forrest was unresponsive. Alex's explanation did little to satisfy investigators, who were unconvinced by her version of events. The forensic evidence, including the lipstick-stained wine glass and her fingerprints on items in the cabin, painted a damning picture. Additionally, text messages recovered from Forrest's phone suggested that Alex had been involved in procuring drugs for their meetings. While this did not directly prove intent, it established a pattern of reckless behavior that aligned with the circumstances of Forrest's death. As the investigation unfolded, public interest in the case grew. The media cast Forrest as a tragic figure, a visionary brought low by the weight of a hidden life that starkly contrasted with his public image. Alex, on the other hand, became the subject of intense scrutiny and vilification. Headlines labeled her a manipulative opportunist, while others painted her as a victim of her own troubled past. The dichotomy of these portrayals only added to the case's intrigue. By the time the investigation concluded, prosecutors had built a case against Alex, charging her with manslaughter, evidence tampering, and drug distribution. The evidence suggested that while Alex may not have intended to kill Forrest, her actions or inactions directly contributed to his death. The trial that followed would bring these questions of intent, culpability, and morality to the forefront. ensuring that the tragedy aboard the Escape would remain etched in public memory for years to come. The trial of Alexandra Tilman became one of the year's most captivating courtroom dramas, drawing the public into a whirlwind of scandal, tragedy, and moral ambiguity. Held in a packed California courthouse, the proceedings brought to light not only the final hours aboard the yacht Escape, but also the complicated lives of both the victim, Forrest Hayes, and the accused. The prosecution painted Alex as a reckless opportunist whose actions directly contributed to Forrest's death. They highlighted key evidence, including the forensic discovery of her fingerprints on the wine glass, text messages detailing her role in procuring drugs, and surveillance footage showing her hurried departure from the yacht to build their case. They argued that her history of substance abuse and involvement in procuring drugs for Forrest showed a pattern of dangerous behavior. With a trove of detailed forensic evidence, the prosecution painted a damning picture. Alex was present during Forrest's overdose, chose not to seek help, and deliberately left the yacht after erasing traces of her presence. The presence of her fingerprints on the wine glass and other items in the cabin, coupled with the text messages exchanged between her and Forrest, were key pieces of evidence that established her connection to the crime. In contrast, the defense depicted Alex as a scapegoat, a vulnerable woman trapped in a tragic situation that spiraled beyond her control. They argued that Forrest, a man with immense wealth and influence, had sought out Alex for companionship and had willingly engaged in risky behavior, including drug use. According to the defense, Forrest had requested the heroin and administered it to himself, a decision that ultimately led to his demise. Alex's departure from the yacht, they claimed, was not an act of malice but one of panic, driven by fear and her own troubled past. Throughout the trial, Alex displayed an unshaken calm. Dressed modestly and professionally, she often sat with her eyes cast downward as witnesses recounted the chilling details of that night. Her defense team presented her as a victim of circumstance, emphasizing her troubled upbringing and history of addiction as critical factors. Alex's former counselor testified about her ongoing efforts in therapy to confront trauma, portraying her as a woman striving to rebuild amidst adversity. They introduced Alex's former counselor, who testified to her efforts in therapy to overcome trauma and addiction, providing a glimpse of her resilience amid hardship. The defense also brought forward character witnesses who recounted her moments of resilience, painting Alex as someone navigating a life fraught with hardship and seeking redemption. The prosecution, however, was relentless in their efforts to dismantle the defense's narrative. They pointed out inconsistencies in Alex's statements and emphasized the calculated nature of her actions after Forrest's overdose. Why, they asked, would someone truly panicked take the deliberate steps to wipe a wine glass and remove potential evidence instead of seeking immediate help? These questions cast doubt on Alex's claims of innocence and portrayed her as someone more concerned with self-preservation than with seeking help for Forrest. The media's relentless coverage amplified the trial's drama, portraying Alexandra Tilman as either a calculating villain or a tragic victim, depending on the narrative. Some outlets sensationalized Alex's role, dubbing her the fatal companion, while others explored the moral complexities of the case. Public opinion was sharply divided. Some viewed Alex as a manipulative figure who exploited Forrest's vulnerabilities, while others saw her as a victim of a system that allowed powerful men to blur the lines of accountability. After weeks of testimony, the trial reached its conclusion. After several days of deliberation, the jury delivered their verdict. Alex was guilty of involuntary manslaughter and evidence tampering, but was acquitted of drug distribution charges. The judge sentenced her to 6 years in prison, citing her reckless actions as the primary factor in Forrest's death. However, he also acknowledged the mitigating circumstances of her troubled past and her lack of prior criminal convictions. The verdict sparked a fresh wave of public debate. Some felt the sentence was too lenient, given the gravity of the case, while others argued it was fair, considering the evidence and Alex's background. In the aftermath of the trial, both Forrest's family and Alex's supporters issued statements reflecting the emotional toll the case had taken on all involved. Forrest's family expressed their grief and frustration, stating that no sentence could ever bring him back or fully account for the pain caused by his loss. Alex's supporters, meanwhile, highlighted the importance of rehabilitation and the hope that she could rebuild her life after serving her time. Ultimately, Alexandra Tilman's trial became a stark examination of the interplay between privilege, power, and accountability, leaving the public grappling with its unsettling moral questions. It raised difficult questions about the choices people make, the secrets they keep, and the consequences that follow. Even after the courtroom doors closed, the tragedy aboard the Escape continued to resonate, a somber reminder of how lives can unravel in the shadows of ambition and desire. Even as Alexandra Tilman began her prison sentence, the echoes of the tragedy aboard the Escape reverberated far beyond the courtroom. For Forrest Hayes' family, the loss was an enduring wound. Despite the trial's outcome, their grief remained raw, compounded by the public scrutiny of Forrest's secret life. To them, he was not the man portrayed in sensational headlines. He was a father, a husband, and a brilliant mind whose contributions had shaped an industry. For Alex, the trial marked a turning point, a stark confrontation with the choices that had brought her to this point. As she adjusted to her new reality behind bars, the weight of her decisions loomed large. Would her time in prison serve as a path to redemption, or would the shadows of her past only deepen? Behind bars, she would have time to reflect on her actions, her past, and the path forward. Would she emerge from this experience with remorse and a resolve to change, or would the shadows of her past continue to define her? The case of Forrest Hayes and Alexandra Tilman left behind a legacy of unanswered questions and hard lessons. Could this tragedy have been avoided? Was Alex a predator, an opportunist exploiting a vulnerable man, or was she herself a victim of circumstance? And what does this case say about the hidden lives of those who seem to have everything? These are questions that linger, not just for those directly involved, but for anyone drawn into the story. The tragedy aboard the Escape serves as a sobering reminder of the perils of secrecy and the destructive paths we tread when seeking escape, whether from stress, emptiness, or unmet desires. Forrest's double life, hidden even from those closest to him, ultimately unraveled in ways no one could have foreseen. It's a reminder that the lines between victim and perpetrator, between accident and intent, are often blurred in ways that defy simple judgment. As you reflect on this story, we invite you to consider its deeper implications. How do privilege, power, and personal vulnerability intersect in shaping the lives we lead? How do we reconcile public personas with private truths? At Truth in the Shadows, we don't just recount stories, we delve deep into the moral dilemmas, hidden truths, and unseen forces that shape real-life events. If you found this case compelling, join our community by subscribing to Truth in the Shadows. Together, we uncover the hidden layers of stories that challenge us to rethink what we know about crime, morality, and the human condition. Your engagement fuels our mission to uncover stories that matter and to shed light on the complexities of crime, morality, and the human condition. What do you think? Was justice served? Share your thoughts and join the conversation. Because in every shadow, there is a truth waiting to be revealed.